Hello, everyone. I see we have, well, it's climbing. We have almost 60. There we go. 60 attendees today. It's still going. This is great. Good to see. And not, I mean, I can't see you, but you could see me. Some people on the call looking to learn about our collections and some of the new capabilities we have coming. We're going to be joined by a guest. I'm going to give everyone just 1 minute to file in, and then I'll tell you who the special guest is. I think you can see him on camera. Um, there we go. It's 1 o'clock. So, 1 o'clock Eastern for those that are Eastern. Thanks for joining. My name is David Gruda. I'm a VP of product, a leader in product, a VP of product in Billtrust. Today, we want to talk about timing, targeting, and technology, how we're reinventing the collections playbook. I'm joined today by Sean Gable. Hey, Sean, you there?
Hello, good
Yeah, Sean.
afternoon.
So, Sean's one of our customers, right? Sean, you've been with Billtrust for some time as a customer, right?
Yeah, it's coming close to almost 2 years now.
2 years. So you're well past implementation. That's great.
Yes,
Yeah, and
we
maybe you can tell us a
survived.
little about yeah, exactly. I don't like to call it that. But let's say, so Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you work, what your role is, and
All
this
right,
way everyone's kind of familiar with who you are.
sure. And I will add too, we survived, but now we're thriving. So it's been a good process. So I'm Sean Gable. I'm the manager of the credit collections team for Custom Truck One Source, which is based in Kansas City, Missouri. I've been in the credit collection space for I say 25 plus years. So I've seen a lot of things change over that time. It was a really exciting time for me to join the company because I came in on the heels of collecting AR through Excel spreadsheets and pretty much free form communications, whether it was email or phone call conversations. So it was a lot of fun to be able to really deploy the technology that Billtrust has to really help us organize our efforts on the AR side. So looking forward to the conversations.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So today, just for those that are on the call, the format's going to go a little bit like this. We're going to ask some poll questions throughout because we want to hear from you. We're going to walk you through our vision for collections as a product and also how that interoperates in our platform play, what Bill Trust puts out into the market. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the new functionalities that we have coming in very short order. And then at the end, of course, we'll have time for some Q&A, so you can ask us anything. And we like having these because we want to hear from you. So please don't hesitate to engage. Doesn't you don't have to wait till the end. If you have questions, you can drop them in during the webinar, and we'll address them at the end or when there's a natural break. Okay. All right. So we're going to kick it off today with a poll question. So the question is, how would you describe your current collections process? We give three different areas. So first is mostly manual. I envision Excel sheets in your future and using your ERP to download aging buckets. Partially automated, maybe you maybe leveled up those Excel sheets, maybe you're using a light solution, maybe you're using our solution, and then that would be fully automated, right? That's the other end of the spectrum, a fully automated solution. So I'm gonna give everyone just a minute there's only three options, so it'll only take 30 seconds. And then we're gonna move on. Once I hear it, see the results, I'm gonna read them out loud. Oh, there we go. So the results. It looks like 58%. We have 71 people submit. So just that's the poll. And there's 117 people on here. So next time, hey, first off, I want to see who's 100 people. If you're going to be on the call, we want you to participate. But we have 71 participants. It looks like everyone's kind of in the middle of the journey. There's 58% that said that they're partially automated. The second most would be mostly manual. So this is going to be really eye-opening for you if you're on this call. And then there's four of you, 6% that are fully automated. So kudos to you for being fully automated. That's fantastic. Let's go on to what we want to talk about today. Sean, where actually first before we do that, Sean, where are you in your journey? Where would you say, fully manual, fully automated? Where in that gray are you?
I would give us somewhere between the B and the C range. There are a few other things that we need to still fully automate, but there's we've got a lot of automation working for us. There's room to add a little bit more, but
That's
we're in a
great.
much
So you're
better
seeing,
place. We're not an A. We're not on the manual side.
oh, that's good. That was probably once was, and now is no
Yes,
longer.
very much so.
All right, great. Um, I like the table set the table a little bit when we talk about these larger strategies and like our approach to collections. So I always like to ask this question first, and it's like, how do you collect? And I think there needs to be some grounding on this because there's always this like negative connotation about collections. Would you agree with me? Like people think about collections, it's usually someone chasing you, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, the literal definition is really the action or process of collecting someone or something, and this something it happens to be cash. And if we think about, and because most of us, including myself, at least maybe most of us on this call are based in North America, we think of in collections, sad emoji, bad times, you're chasing you, you're gonna get someone knocking on your door, and then the rest of the world actually calls it we are collecting, and it's the idea there's an open balance and you're collecting. And I prefer this approach much more, right? It's a journey that you're sending your customer. We call your customers buyers. It's a journey we send your buyers on to be able to engage with your brand to drive the best outcomes. And that outcome for you is getting paid, and for them to be able to have a credit line with you to get goods and services, right? And we also like to position this as in that journey concept as collections really driving the customer relationship management, the CRM of your AR. And if we were, does this resonate with you, Sean? Is it similar to the way you guys think about it at Custom Truck?
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So it's like customer success first. Good, nice touches. All right, great. I'm glad we're landing today at least. Let's talk about what a CRM is. So a CRM actually is composed of three different things, and this isn't just limited to collections. This is in marketing. This is in any type of ads or any type of sales process you might have. It's really who do you contact, when do you contact them, and then what would you say to them? And if we were to think about the challenges, there's different challenges in each of these buckets, right? If we were to actually deconstruct this, you could probably triple click into each of these and find out there's a lot of hairiness underneath the deck here. So I wanted to ask the second question to the group here, which is, what is your team's biggest challenge in collections today? If you were to think about those different areas, is it managing the relationship? Is it the lack of visibility into the data, the attribution of like what really produced the result? Does your team have the bandwidth to be able to do this? Are we short staffed? Are we trying to scale higher? Are we only focusing on certain accounts? And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. There's a couple of nuggets in there. Are our customers fatigued from hearing from us? Like we have to chase them all the time. So we let everyone respond. And Sean, of course, you got to think about your answer too, Sean, as we do this. And then the last is lack of automation, which I think everyone would say there's room for improvement, but we'll see what the poll says. So 129 people on the call. Let's see if we get higher than 71 than last time. Don't make me calling you individually. I will. All right, let's see. Give everyone another minute. They're going to post the results. Oh, okay. It's on my screen. You guys can't see it. So I will say the number one at 20. We went higher first off. First off, we went from 71 to 81. So I see people are starting to drink their coffee and they're starting to get engaged. Um, let's start with team bandwidth and resources. So everybody here feels understaffed to be able to complete the job. That's at 25%. 20 people said that. Number two on the list, if this was Family Feud, would be lack of automation. That's interesting that the two, one and two. So you could say if we were to automate more, theoretically, we'd be able to scale our team and drive more bandwidth, right? So those two are kind of interrelated. So that's if I sum those two up, you could say over 40% of everyone on the call today feels understaffed and doesn't have the automation in place. That's pretty powerful statement. I would also say managing customer relationships falls into slot three, followed by the customer fatigue, and then pulling up the rear is focusing on our high risk accounts and lack of visibility into what works. Well, the good news about today is we're going to actually talk about all of that. We're going to talk about all these challenges that we have. Sean, which one was yours? Did you mentally have one that you thought of? It was like, hey, this is us.
This is a great list. There's something here, I think, in every area that really provides a blind spot, I think. But a lot of it now just is the customer fatigue, right? Not knowing when to contact and who to contact at the right time.
Yeah, I'm very happy you said that. We're going to talk about those problems specifically. And if you could mentally snapshot these into the rest of the conversation, we're going to touch on every single one. So it's really cool. We're going to share some of the new tech that we have coming out in our approach to collections. And I want to start that by talking about how you have to think about your customers. And we call that segments. Like, how do you segment your customers? So I guess my first question for you, Sean, is how does Custom Truck do it? How do you think about managing your customers at scale?
Yeah, that's a really tough question at times. We have several different unique business lines, so we've taken the approach of looking at the business lines and segmenting the customers out within the different business lines because they do require different approaches. Some of them require more of a soft touch or softer touch or limited contact touch. So just understanding your customers, we look at are they a large national company versus a small sole proprietor. They need to be handled differently and with different tactics and approaches. So that's really kind of how we've taken the segmentation approach.
Yeah, that's a very common way that we hear that our customers, we call our customers suppliers. They supply goods and services to their buyers. Their network. Otherwise, at Billtrust, we just be saying customers all the time, be really confusing. So when you're talking to your buyers, you're thinking about who are my VIPs, who are the ones that are a little cranky with me. I'm sure they're of the 136 people on the call. They're like, oh, I feel seen. Sean is me. I am living his life, but in a different alternate universe at my company. So this is not uncommon. We keep hearing that. And the way we wanted to, and we thought about how we could solve this ultimately. And we want people to be able to treat their VIPs like VIPs, and we want people our suppliers to be able to treat their new customers like a new customer and not be annoying. Like, you don't want to be chasing people like with with a receipt in hand saying, "Hey, you owe me some money." And we thought about this in many different ways. We thought the best way to start was looking at data. So just to break it down very simply, we thought about your buyers, your customers, and there's the date of the issue of the invoice, right? That's the day that you start doing business with them, or you've already sold it, and the issuance comes a couple days later, or the same day, hopefully, right? You want to improve that DSO, and then everything is relative to the term. That's the due date, right? So every customer might be a special snowflake, and they get, Dave's great, gets his 14-day term. Sean's even better. If we give him a little bit better credit line, he gets a 30-day term. Maybe Sean's even better than that. He gets a 90-day term. You must be a super VIP with custom truck at that point, right? You guys are usually what, like, are you COD or are you you're 14 days, 30 days?
Mostly 30.
Mostly 30. So
Yeah.
you want everyone to be paying you on that first 30 days. And the thing that probably stresses you out is the longer they carry that open balance, there's that risk, that implied risk. It's like the odds. I think of it as like going to Vegas and you're playing the odds of like, what is the chance that Sean's actually going to pay me? And as time goes on, as you get to that invisible line, that due date, the chances of them paying hit a certain amount of probability, right? And once you pass the line, the probability, there's a cliff, right? It drops off, right? My speaking Spanish here, we were all on the same page. Yeah,
Yes,
great.
definitely. Yep.
Great. So sorry. So ideally, we're moving everyone to the left, and we're fighting off people on the right. And when we looked at the data that we have across all the different customers that we have, we said, when do people actually pay? And funny enough, there's a pattern to this, and it meets a bell curve. Meaning that, and if you're in my house, I like to pay my credit card bill the minute I get it. My wife gets very upset with that. She goes, "You're actually just giving the credit card company a loan. You realize that? Because you should wait till the last day because that's when you're entitled to be able to pay it." And this is similar in the B2B sense. You want your cash flow to be improved, but your customers are also managing their own cash flow. So there's got to be a little bit of carrot and a little bit of stick here, where you're trying to give them incentives to move to the left, and you're trying to prevent them from going to the right, right? And there's many levers you can pull to be able to do that. And when we thought about the probability of payment, we see that most payments happen on or about the due date relative to the term specific to the customer, specific to that buyer. And for every customer, and we thought, okay, if we were to segment this out, how might this look? And we said, oh, surely there's like 100 segments in here. If we were to take this left to right and like break it apart. And when we started thinking about the actions we'll take, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, it actually distills down into three different buckets. There's your low payment risk. These are the people who always pay you ahead of time, consistently, relative to their date. There's people who pay you on or about, and maybe they have some anomalous activity. The check was in the mail, got, the cat, the dog, the homework. There's a good reason it didn't happen. And then there's those that are we're doing business with them, but they kind of are abusive to us and they don't pay us all the time on time, and we have to chase them, and there's some costs to that too. And so we thought about we were actually able to machine out these different buckets of users using all this data. And then we thought, how would you actually manage this risk? If you were to turn this into like a practical application, like for those low paying customers, like when should you chase them? And what would you do? And if you're a low payment risk, you probably shouldn't chase them because the reality is they're going to pay you on time. That's just what they're used to doing. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, with high payment risk, we're saying act early. Does that resonate with you, Sean? Is it something you're familiar? You
Oh,
would feel
yes, yes,
meeting a need? Sorry, I'm just going to close the door here. Getting a little loud in my house. Happens. So we see this data consistently across our entire network, and that's one of the advantages of Billtrust. We have this big network full of buyers, and we're able to see these patterns at scale. And I think when we spoke the last time, right, you said to me, "Well, Dave, these aren't static segments. Like people start with me, and when people start business with you, they're usually in the low risk, right?"
yes. Typically, yep,
Yeah, and then you find out, I call it Scooby-Doo, they reveal themselves at the end, and it's like, oh, you're actually a high-risk customer. I didn't know that was
yes,
something in the background. So we thought about that too, and that's the added complexity to this is that these different buckets, your customers are actually moving between the buckets at the same time. So, like, let me ask you this: right now, at Custom Truck, are you guys managing your book this way, where you watch the life cycle of a customer? Are you able to? And like, no shame, because like this is the hard problem to solve.
right. Now, this is where I said I wish we were more automated. This would be one of the areas that we just don't have any automation in place, any good visibility into as a customer's moving from one particular risk category to another. We start them out where we start them out, and we're pretty much a static collection workflow at this point.
Yeah, that's the story we heard with so many other companies as we were thinking about, hey, what could we build that would really make this easier? And then just like throw a grenade in the room on this one too. I'm sure everyone here is getting the same pressures. You have to grow 20% year over year. I mean, Billtrust is a company too. We want to grow. So each of these buckets are getting bigger, which means that how do you combat that? You have to hire more staff, embrace more automation. How does that impact your cash flow? I'm sure if you're in finance, every one of you have interacted with some salesperson that's like, we just got to do it. This is a big deal. And they're high risk, but we're doing it anyway. And then they pay me late and they're asking for tons of concessions. It's just the reality of the world that we live in, right? I hope I'm hitting some heartstrings out there today. Everyone feels like, oh, they see me. We see it in the data. So there it is. You're on the same page, Sean? Same page as me on
Oh,
this one?
totally, 100%. Yep.
The sales thing, I think, got you on that one.
Yes, totally.
Uh, all right, so let's talk about how we do it. How do we fix this? So we created this concept called segments. We very literally called it segments inside of our platform, and it's intelligent segment management. I like the tilde there. It's at scale. And if you take the different segments that you have, usually what we see is that suppliers today, it's the same story. Like we have a one size fits all strategy. Maybe there's some slight modifications, maybe move the VIPs over here. But for the majority of the book that you have, your wallet, it's usually the same outreach strategy. And if you're like me, and my wife will tell you, she tells me that I am a special snowflake. I think I'm a special snowflake, that your customers believe that too. So we are suggesting that we replace this static strategy with dynamic strategies that adapt to the customers and who they are and the risk buckets that they fall in. And now the benefit of this is it's almost like you have another person on your staff and within your Billtrust subscription, that's a data scientist because you have to constantly be updating these algorithms. You have to be looking at this data. You have to do data prep to get it in there, and then you have to trust it, right? And this is updated based on the most recent data we have. Now, the nice thing about our platform is it's streaming, so we get all those payments. We also do offline streaming. So if you have our cash application, we get all those checks, all those non-bill trust payments, and we can funnel those into this centralized data pool too. So we can calculate risk in a very quick velocity to be able to group these customers into the segments that they most likely belong. And it allows you to not only improve your days to pay when you start thinking about customers this way, but it allows you to touch the entire book of the business instead of focusing on those large dollar amounts. And the large dollar amounts matter, and that's part of the algorithm. And we're going to be releasing a lot of content about like how we derive this, so you can feel confident that the results that we're giving are going to be representative of the way you might calculate them. And we're going to increment that over time, so it's only going to get better. But yes, it gives you that full transparency into the book of business that you can touch all your customers, despite what your scale is. And it'll surface the ones that you really got to care about. Because if you're like me, and I don't know, Sean, if you're like me, I think about every keystroke that someone on my team makes is like dollars and cents. I don't know, do you look at the
Oh,
team and you're like, yeah,
yeah, definitely.
yeah. It's kind of and I'm sure there's one person on your team you're like, man, I wish they would just make more phone calls, right? We'd be able to collect a little bit more. All right.
Yep.
So how does this manifest itself in the platform? And this is rules-based versus dynamic transition. So we don't want to take away that rules-based. So Sean, your VIPs, they can still be VIPs. Those are what we call custom segments. That's the existing segmentation configuration you have. In our current application, we call those procedure entrance criteria. So like, why is this person going down this journey? So we're reimagining that. And the reason we're reimagining that is because we want to introduce autopilot segments, where we'll also give you full transparency into who those customers are. And if you notice on this is the prototype, the real deal is coming out, and you can talk to one of our sales reps if you're interested, or see your account manager. We'll be able to give you a demo. We want to give you demos and get you as an early adopter. If you're interested, you can message us after the call to look at your data. We are going to show you the overlap of your existing segmentation strategy with our autopilot recommendations. Because we have a theory that your best customers probably fall into one of these buckets, or maybe a smattering across the boat. So you can see the different distributions, that high, medium, low in the custom segments that maps to these autopilot segments. And for those customers that you don't have enough history with, we also want to put you into what we call the optimal Billtrust execution, or the optimal procedure. Those are the ones that are denoted as in review right now because they're still building data. And we'll give you transparency into your custom segments. We're kind of reimagining that as well, with the ability to understand the rules and the editable rules that are driving those outcomes. So that's segments. That's what we're going to be. That's the next hill that we're climbing, and the ability to start having these conversations. Like, who are we talking to? So now the next question is like, when do you talk to them? And if you're familiar with Billtrust, that's when we introduce procedures. So I'm going to ask my next question. Um, how do you decide when and how to reach out to customers? It's a poll question. So I see 136. We got 81 last time. So we go to 91, maybe 100. Let's kick off that question. No, there's no poll. It might just be me. I'm missing out on the poll here. But Sean, how about this? Sean, how do you decide when and how to reach out to customers? Maybe that'd be the better way to go.
That's a bit of a loaded question, because then it goes back to the type of business, how we segmented it. Are they VIP? Are they a higher risk? But oftentimes we don't know what kind of risk level they are. So again, kind of we set up procedures based on feedback from the sales teams from the various product lines, and made adjustments from that as we deployed those collection procedures.
Yeah, that's a very common approach. If we were to think about all the different modalities of outreach with a VIP customer, you're probably making phone calls right away, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and those cost a lot more than the reminders and the automated notes, right?
Yes, correctly. But the phone
Yeah,
calls come a little bit later too. We give them a little grace there.
yeah, but it's really about the sequencing, right? So
Yeah.
if you think about the activities, there's the different types of outreach that you might do, right? This is the action. So there's the reminders, the dunning notices, the calls, and the external collectors. And then even with inside each of these different activities, there's different modality to that. And that's usually what people think about. They think like, okay, how am I contacting? So green checkbox to everybody here on the call. If you're making phone calls, if you're sending emails, you're already doing that. That's table stakes. What we're suggesting is we introduce two more variables to this. So the first one is that, and you kind of alluded to it, which was one, frequency. So how can we chase the bad actors without sacrificing our brand safety? Because, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And then the third option is really attribution. So like, what is the most effective way of outreach that's going to get you to the outcome that you want? And it ultimately, all this distills down to actually a machine learning algorithm. It's if you set the goal, you think about all the actions you have, all the signal, the machine can tell you this is the best sequencing, this is the best spacing, this is what worked, what didn't work, and what resulted into the goal, the ultimate outcome, that optimization. And that's really where we're trying to focus with this new feature as we put people down these new procedures. And for people who are new or thinking about Billtrust, a procedure is our outreach strategy. So we set up these different sequences to be able to go talk to customers about who you should call, when you should call them, and what would be the modality of delivery. So we do that. And I want to unpack a little bit more in detail today, which is powered by the data we have at Billtrust, because we have a really big network. What is attribution? And I think about this in terms of strategy. So let's set the table of strategy first. So if you think about the strategy you have, there's lo-fi suppliers, and there's hi-fi suppliers. So lo-fi suppliers maybe have limited strategy, and we talked about this a little bit with the segments, like one size fits all for all buyers, and then they kind of set it and they never come back to it. They, if I've been on calls with many customers, and I go, "When was the last time you looked at your strategy?" And they go, "Oh, we've been doing this for 10 years." And well, the times have changed. People feel differently about SMS now. They feel differently about phone calls and emails. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have our hi-fi customers. These are with multiple complex strategies. I've seen some that are like 100 steps. It's kind of wild. Can you imagine going on a 100-step journey? It's almost like Lord of the Rings into Mordor. You're going quite the distance there with your customers to try to collect. They're highly complex, they're elongated, but to do the data analysis on that is also very it's a heavy lift, right? And if you had to think, I'm gonna ask you on the spot, Sean, where do you think people trend mostly today? Where of our customer base, where do you think they are on this graph?
Probably more over to the hi-fi side.
The hi-fi side, wow, you're very optimistic. It's like
Well,
maybe you're drinking some of the same Kool-Aid that I have. It's actually more closer to the other end. And like I said, the first question I always ask when I talk to a prospect or somebody who I get on the phone with is like, when was the last time you looked at your strategy? And it usually 9 times out of 10 is, oh, we haven't looked at it since we implemented, or and we're kind of dabbling at it. We're picking here and there a couple different options, or we're trying to test and learn. Um, and the bigger question I like to ask is, are you working the activity or are you optimizing to KPIs? It's actually a question you should probably ask your collectors. Like, how do you think about your day and how do you prioritize your day? And if you're just making all the phone calls and you're not really thinking about the end result, then you're not really improving your business, right?
right.
So we are introducing to the software levers so that managers can see the effectiveness of this. So the question really is, how can you level up? So we talked about frequency. That's the second bit that we're going to put in here. And if you're like me, companies that call you too quickly and too often, that's annoying, right? And then also, if you message me so infrequently, it loses relevance. So the idea is that the algorithms are going to be optimizing the outreach to the best sequencing with the right spacing. And then the last is what works and what doesn't work. So if it doesn't work, we shouldn't be doing it. And we looked at the aging of an event and when the payment happens. And surprising, maybe unsurprising, that 5 days attribution is usually where we see the most effective attribution. After that, it kind of drops off, meaning you can do 5 to 15 days, it's the same amount of conversion. If you go less than that, you're going to see less conversion because it's too close for people to do. And coincidentally, that 5 days aging, the 5 days attribution, it works into the business week, which is not surprising for a B2B AR automation company, right? Where our customers would be into that. So we talked about segments, and now we got to marry those segments into a new interface of procedures that look at the different steps and where they're placed inside of the sequence. And we're going to do that proactively for you. So what this does is it's going to make recommendations for your existing procedures, as well as you can leverage our existing procedures if you like, the recommended ones that we have optimized from the Billtrust data to be able to drive the best outcomes and best journeys for your customers. So in a couple of weeks when this goes live, I think it's targeting October 9th right now. You'll be able to go in and it's going to, or sorry, October 9th is the initial release for our autopilot procedures. So you'll see that. On October 25th, we're going to be releasing the optimization of your existing procedures. So what that means is that the existing journeys you send your customers on, we're going to analyze those and make recommendations on what's going to drive better outcomes. So you don't have to throw those away. You can keep them if you like. You're going to be able to see which customers are put into there, but also overlap with the autopilot procedures. And then we're going to give you optimizations based on this machine learning capability. What do you think, Sean? Sounds pretty nifty.
I think it sounds great, and I can't wait to have this get deployed. I do worry that some people may not want to trust the data and go with what's been working or what they assume to be working and not be willing to change. So that could be a big paradigm shift for some people.
Yeah, we hear that a lot, and our approach generally is to give you as much transparency into how we calculate this. Obviously, we don't want to create a black box for anybody, but the release will come coupled with a lot of white paper. So those are research studies that we've done on how we've designed this, and also the different variables we use. When we design these algorithms, we started with all the data and we tested every individual element to see what was influential and which ones we could throw away, and we actually landed on a very small subset. You would think it's surely there's a lot more inflection that's given from the more data you have, and you're right, but it has to be meaningful. So we narrowed it down. There's a lot more content, probably too much to share on the time that we have today, but you can expect that coming from Billtrust. So before you're ready to jump in the water, we got you covered. We want to make you feel safe that we're a good life raft for you, and we're going to give you all the content so you can we can have those discussions, and you should be on the lookout for those in the next couple of weeks. Actually, I'm going to make sure you get it, Sean. All
Great.
right.
Looking
No
forward to it.
problem. No problem. So today we talked about who do you contact, when do you contact them. Now let's talk about what do you say. And if you've been paying attention to some of the capabilities that we released recently, I call these our last mile technologies, meaning that this is what the collectors will do and use to make their jobs even easier. We released in June our agentic email capability, which reads those email responses that you get from that outreach, and it automatically itemizes what the to-dos are and also the summary of what the customers are trying to say to you so you can get through emails. We've seen a 4x reduction in handle times already from that. Agentic Procedures coming out in October. So that's going to be October 9th is the first release, and the second release will be out on October 25th. A lot of collateral coming out about that. And then I'm really excited to get, and we'll come back. We'll come back and tell you more about this. But in Q4, we're going to be doing agentic credit lines as well as doing what we do in agentic email, but we're going to do it for voice. So we have a lot of automation in that last mile to help collectors be more efficient. Today, I wanted to focus more on the capabilities that we have to get you the who and the when, and now we're doing the what. So a lot more great things to come from us and how we address these challenges. And I think that's everything I want to share today. I'm happy to do Q&A if we have any. Do we have any in the chat? Let's go check it out. I don't see anything. Let me check. Hey,
Not
Nathan, are you on? Or
not yet,
Allison?
but we'll keep an eye and we can answer them at the end.
Okay. Well, Nathan, I think you have some questions for us too.
Yeah, so we'd love to keep the conversation going, dive a little bit deeper into Sean's experiences here. So I've got a set of questions for both of you, really. And Sean, I'm going to put you in the hot seat first.
All right.
Um, yeah, so the first question here is going to be, can you share an example from Custom Truck where adjusting your outreach timing or targeting actually made a measurable difference for you in your collections?
Well, it's been a little difficult to measure it up until now, and it sounds like that's going to be easier to validate any adjustments. But I can tell you, when we went from having no structure in an organization to going onto the Billtrust platform, and even after talking to the business heads, once the outreach and procedures started to take place, we started to get feedback that we're contacting too much, too soon, too late. So there was some feedback internally based on some of the activities that we started.
Nice. So it sounds like you were able to get some of those insights and hopefully were able to adapt your strategies with
Yep,
those.
absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, moving on, I've got another one again for you, Sean. And I'm curious, how do you balance being persistent with your collections with maintaining strong customer relationships, especially in an industry where that repeat business is critical to you?
Yeah, that's we kind of touched on that a little bit, or Dave did a little bit in terms of risk and the value. And I think it comes down to knowing your customers and having the tool at your means to be able to segment risk, relationships, and prioritize those accounts and give those high value customers probably more personalized, customized approach versus more of a maybe canned automated approach like you would with some higher risk items.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any best practices or tidbits, maybe a tip you want to share around, one way you might have personalized or made sure you're not giving them that canned approach?
Well, there's different ways you can look at it. So every company may be different, but we did identify some VIP accounts to tag them as that, and set up specific procedures that are a little more fluid, a little less rigid, like you would see on some of the high risk items.
Right. Absolutely. Nice. All right, Dave, I'm gonna turn this one over to you.
Oh boy.
Yeah, what are some of the most exciting ways that AI is currently being applied to optimize collection strategies? I think you talked through a few of these, but would love to dive a little deeper there.
Yeah, we're still in the early days with adopting AI. I think Sean kind of hit on it. People need to be able to trust this, and the I keep saying that whenever I'm asked, people go, "Oh, do you think people will use the AI capabilities?" And I say they have to be able to trust their jobs with it. So because we're moving large sums of money, and we take that pretty seriously. So the thought process is that if you could find places where you're in repetitive motion all the time and it's either structured or unstructured data. Those are areas that are super ripe for automation. But now that we have large scale language models, LLMs, you have the ability to be able to implement these into the process so it can handle both, and which means that we can innovate much faster in these pain point areas. And I showed a few, like so sending emails is the easy one, right? Like people are going to send you an unstructured response and you're going to turn it into a structured concept of like, what do I do here? And the same thing can be said for the predictive items. So you can create really quick forecasting models where before you had to write large Python scripts to be able to do all this, and you can turn them around pretty quickly. So we're able to do this in a very tailored way in the process of the workflow. And that's where customers of Billtrust and even customers outside of Billtrust use their collections tools elsewhere. That's where they're really gaining those advantages. So even in my life, when I'm thinking about doing my work, like if I have to punch up a slide, maybe I'll drop the slide in the ChatGPT and then ask it for some suggestions on the different language or the formatting, and it always gives me a little bit of nugget. And it's not meant to replace my brain. My brain's is unique. It's very creative. So I just use it as a guiding light to help me get there. And now I'll finish up here, but in the tools that we have, it's really meant to do the same. It's really meant for you to be trust and verify. And if it's right, it's right. You can move on. If it's as long as it's like a lower order function. If it takes a little more work, and it gets you 90% of the way.
Gotcha. Nice. Love to hear that. A lot of innovation on the way. Definitely also use AI in my daily life, and I don't know if it's hurting or helping yet, but we'll soon find out.
You seem to be doing
That
okay.
That said, Sean, would love to kind of bounce off of what Dave just mentioned here. Looking ahead, I'm kind of curious, what skills or capabilities do you think your AR team or AR teams in general are going to need to really build and learn to thrive in this new AI-driven era of collections?
Yeah, I think we're going to all find ourselves that are working in this space that we need to be a little more analytical thinking, do some data diving, understand data literacy aspects of that, learning to apply that and using that data to make those decisions so we can quickly pivot and update strategies, um, where to learn to use some common sense and say, okay, that doesn't necessarily make sense with this customer or this group of customers. And this group of customers were good with doing the automated approach versus, more of a custom made tailor approach. So I think you're always going to have that human element that's going to be needed to apply and differentiate a lot of those distinguishing factors. Oftentimes, people come to me with issues or problems, and they want to apply a certain standard fix to it. And my common response is this is very situational, right? Everybody has something very unique and situational about whatever's the issue with getting you paid timely. And that's where I think you're going to have to work to blend that with the technology that we're trying to deploy.
Hey Nathan,
Gotcha.
we do have some questions in the chat. I just want to knock them out before, unless you have some others. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, we could definitely, yeah, want to make sure that we answer those as well. Yeah, go
All
for it,
right,
Dave.
I'll get a few of them. So Danielle asks, will these updates automatically be rolled out to existing Billtrust customers? Yes. So this comes included in your subscription cost. These will be rolled out starting on the 9th, so you'll start to see those. And I'll and if you have questions, you should reach out to your customer success manager or your account manager. We have lots of content for them they could share, and but you'll be getting emails from us too. Um, and the next question is, can you set up escalating emails that begin to CC outside salespeople or a branch manager came from Michael? And the answer is yes, we do that. We have lots of customers who ask for that. They want to make sure that their sales staff know that their customers are being a little bit weird with the payments. And this way they can get engaged. And sometimes those are the front line of defense, right? Those are the people who own the relationships. So there's that. I see a question from Thomas. When is the biggest increase on risk for non-payments? So meaning like people with open balances. That's how I'm reading that. How many days, or does it really depend on the industry and industry to industry? I'd say it's more of dependent on who the customer is, the volume, and also their credit worthiness is usually what we see. But typically, the risk starts to multiply after 45 days. That's when you can pretty much say they're probably not going to be paying you. Then we see a huge drop off there in terms of the likelihood of payment. Well, post due. But we also see a lot of people come to us with procedures and outreach programs that go into the 100 days. But it also depends on the aging of the document. This is trying to change the whole thing and make it more dynamic. So it's an adaptable system. That's really where we're heading. And I don't think industry really matters. I think you asked that in the question too. Industry is not really a factor. All right. Answered all those questions. Nathan, we only have a couple more minutes, right? I think we go till 45 after. Is that
Yeah, I
right?
think we got some time here, but let me try to view.
Oh, I can't hear you. Your microphone seems to be cutting out.
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
A
A little
little bit.
bit.
There
All
you go.
right.
You came back.
Awesome. Sean, I want to play off of what you were saying earlier about, situationally or depending on the context, leveraging AI or making decisions, can really vary. And so my question for you is, a lot of companies are actually worried about AI starting to replace human judgment. Dave was talking about his brain and how, he's got to balance that with the AI itself. From your experience, where do you actually see that human intuition still playing a very irreplaceable role in collections, even as these tools start to advance?
Well, yeah, it kind of goes on what I said a minute ago, where you still have to apply common sense in many situations, and then some personality and some human touch to that. David mentioned the agenic email responses went live, and that's been interesting to watch some of the analysts embrace it or run from it. And what I found is they're all kind of on their own journey in terms of accepting the help and getting comfortable with the help, and being willing to go off of canned responses that AI is seeing and reading and adjusting. But there's always that opportunity to add a little personal touch in some of those communications, some of those touch points. So I don't think you'll ever see that be replaced. I just don't know how it can be because of all this unique situations you run into.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
absolutely.
you're killing it, Sean, for me at least. This tomorrow we are releasing we call Voice of the Supplier, where those email responses, if you like in my house, my wife always signs, emails to me. She says, love. For her, I say thanks. I'm just kidding. But we're embracing a new technology that allows us to create a learning loop for our responses. So we expect all the responses to become much more personalized to what the collectors are saying. It'll sound like them. Now, on the other side of the coin is I don't know if you want that. I've looked at an inordinate amount of collector responses. I can tell you, and this goes for all our customers who are on the call. Some of your collectors don't speak so nicely to your customers. So maybe you want to reach out to us. We can tell you what they're saying. But what we also found as we released these new capabilities that the quality of the outreach has gotten much better too. So there's like a give and a take for that. Like you want your best actors to have their voice encapsulated. You want your worst actors to not have their voice encapsulated.
Totally. Kind of going off that thread, Sean was talking about how, more and more there's this sensitivity towards, whether AI is going to take over human control or not. And I'm wondering, Dave, can you speak a little bit to what is Billtrust doing to try to mitigate those concerns? What are we doing when we're developing our AI to make sure that it's really just learning off the right data sets, foundational models, anything around the, innovations that you mentioned today around agentic email, around this procedures and segmentation? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. So the tech we use is not, it's a service that you can, there are many different providers out there. We use OpenAI as our service. These do not train our foundational models. They're used to coach the LLM into understanding what is happening, not to suck your data and send it back to the OpenAI mothership. That's not the reality. So everything we do is encapsulated within Billtrust inside of our walls, and we have all the SOC 2 and high-end security compliances. So we're well within inside of fair use and good security. So we're in a good spot there. The second thing that we do is we train these models internal, like using the service within our walls to leverage your data. So by using your data, we're able to create good context of what your business is, context of who the customer is, all the open balances that we have, all the different actions that they take, and then be able to create those really personalized experiences. So it's done with great care. And also, we don't like mix this across the streams, I would say, where one customer's data is interoperating with another customer's data. When we do those scenarios, we completely anonymize it to the point where there's no way you would know that it's a one-way anonymization, and you can never go back from that. So we store that in a different place, in a safe harbor to be able to do that kind of work. But we only use that in a case of a good example would be like those procedures. We want to know how effective alerts are in email. And when you look at the total Bill Trust data, you're able to get better efficacy because you have more data sample. So being that it's in a privacy compliant way, anonymized, it's only one way. It makes it easier to do that while not risking any of the security issues. And then I think there was a second part around trust, right? Ultimately, right?
Right.
So like I mentioned this before, we're not a black box. We want to show you the result, the why, and the how. There's a lot of great content we have coming out for that, and we're happy to share it because this is your business. We just want to be your good partner in helping you run it. And I always use the analogy when Iron Man your staff, they could step into the super suit and do amazing things. So that's the intent. It's not to take away from what they do already.
Awesome. Well, Sean, I've got just one more question for you before we turn back to the chat. I know a lot of questions have been populating there. And this one kind of related to what we were speaking about earlier, but I'm curious, as Custom Truck has started to explore automation and also AI in collections, have you noticed any cultural or organizational shifts that were required? And that could be within your own team, within the AR team, or even how other departments are viewing yours in relation to how you're using AI.
Yeah, so I think again, it kind of goes back to recognizing everybody's on a different journey with technology and understanding and trusting what it's going to give you, but also verifying the outputs. Within the AR team specifically, there are some, I'm not sure, I don't think I've even used the agentic response yet. And then we've got several on the opposite side that are, all in and they're using it the majority of the time. Externally outside of the team, I think it will require some re-engagement with the different business segments and leaders to say, here's what's coming, here's what's going to be available. Are you comfortable with us segmenting further now based on the data that Billtrust is providing us to continue that outreach and making, in some cases, probably some major adjustments on how we engage these customers. So I think there's gonna be more collaboration needed to get that buy-in to really kind of embrace what's coming.
Yeah.
Oh, Nate, your mic's doing it again. Do you want me to handle the customer responses? There's a couple more questions in chat. Just like thumbs up would be good.
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh,
Go
there you
for
go.
it.
Here, and of course, your
Yeah.
mic came back right when we did that. I see two questions really. So when it comes to AI, are you crossing customers to train the AI? So, like I said, the answer on segments is no. This is your data. On the procedures design, we obfuscate that, so it's done in a privacy compliant way. There's no way to tie it back to your customers. Is there any option to customize the AI model? So I asked that question a lot. We are just starting this journey. So we are building this self-service model where you don't need to have a data scientist on staff. We are exploring ways of expanding this in the future. Just more to come, especially as we get closer to launching our 2026 roadmap, and you can expect a lot more content to come out of that within Q4. Oh, I think another question came in. Um, does Billtrust have the capability to provide these services internationally? And uh, if you can be supported on our products, then yes, as long as the product supports it, we can support it. So it's dependent on the region and also the nuance of the locale. So some countries have very stringent and very sophisticated billing and payments needs. Others less so. We are going to be really, if you have questions specific about specific countries, feel free to reach out. We can tell you about where they work and where they do not work. Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. Do you have any other questions, Nate? No? Your mic's doing it again. I imagine you're saying, no, Dave, we're good.
I think that's all we got. So we can wrap it up here. Thanks, Sean and Dave and Nate. That was a great session. And just a reminder to the audience that the session was recorded and we'll share it out by end of week. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.